highest result of education is tolerance. Helen Keller. We all hear stories about the levels of intolerance that exist in this world. It makes for good TV, it makes for good newspaper articles. It's just very entertaining from some people's perspective. What we don't hear are the stories of tolerance that actually keeps our society going. Tolerance, friendship, camaraderie, qualities like that are what actually keeps us as a species as evolved as we are. What if I told you there was a counterculture based completely on tolerance and these other principles that guide our nobler purposes? I'm going to tell you a story of tolerance from one such culture. What makes me qualified to speak about tolerance? Well, let's just say growing up, when I went to school, I was one of the few black kids in my school, which unfortunately created a certain level of intolerance by the non-black students. Also, many of the other black students weren't very tolerant of me simply because I went to school to learn and not to bum around and socialize. So pretty much I got it from both sides. So let me explain to you a bit about the story I'm going to tell you, in that I will share with you what was happening, why it was happening, and how it resolved itself. So this place takes place in a mining community. At the time our story begins, dozens of murders have occurred. At least 50 miners were killed. Now, mining itself is a dangerous job, but imagine having a mine, doing a dangerous job, and then worrying about somebody killing you while you're there. The killer seemed to be eluding capture at every turn. Nobody could quite catch who or what was killing all of these miners. So the mining community was forced to seek assistance from outside forces, which in this case are our heroes. Since our heroes were not from the community, they had a more neutral approach to finding out what was going on, rather than just seeking blood for blood, as the miners were at this point in time. Through their neutral position, they were able to observe different clues and patterns that would have eluded anybody else who was personally involved in the situation. Okay, so we discussed a little bit of the what was going on in the story. Let's figure out why these murders were actually happening. First, I have to say, it was interesting that the killer continued to kill even though they were being hunted at every turn. It wasn't until one of our heroes was forced to attempt to communicate with the killer did we actually find out the motives behind the killing. You see, the miners were actually killing the young of the killer through their ignorance, of course. They didn't know that they were committing essentially genocide, and that the killer was responding in turn, not out of hate, but just out of the basic nature to defend one's young. As you can probably guess, the killer was not a human being. Now that we discussed a bit of the whys, let's discuss how this situation resolved itself and where the tolerance comes into play. So once the miners realized that they were in fact instigating the situations by killing the young of this alien being, they stopped. Rather than trying to kill them all so they wouldn't have to worry about them anymore and then deal with the parent, they actually decided, let's stop the killing so the killing will stop. Once they stopped killing the young, the parents stopped killing the minors. In fact, they formed an alliance, and the alien beings actually helped the miners find the ore that they were looking for a lot faster and increase production. This is just another sign of how common ground and seeing from other people's points of view, which we call tolerance, helps propel our society to the next level each time. Rather than just reacting to what we see, actually taking the time to consider and be mindful of what's going on. So I discussed the what's, the whys, and the resolution. As you may or may not have guessed, this is a story of fiction written by a great man named Gene Roddenberry for a small series that we know as Star Trek. This is one of the episodes from that show, which is an entire series and, by extension, mini pocket universe of tolerance. Everything about the show is based on the fact that we can grow beyond our prejudices, our biases, our xenophobias, and ultimately become a larger and more inclusive society. This show was filmed about over 50 years ago, and these are lessons that we are still learning today. As is evident by the glorification of intolerance via news outlets and our TV shows that are written for the sake of being violent and intolerant, as it were. It's nice to know that there's a beacon of light in the entertainment world, and it's a world that I wholeheartedly welcome, called Star Trek. Thank you.